Hello, debaters. My name is Kelsey, and we are here to talk about debate. So first thing, let's get warmed up. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think of a book that you love. Okay, I hope you have it. So tell me why you think I should read that book. Go ahead. Okay, hope you're finished. Sounds like a really good book. So what did you do to try and convince me to read that book just now? Okay, maybe you gave some examples of what happened. Maybe you were really excited with your voice, with your language, with your body to try and convince me. Maybe you described what you think I like and said, well, if you like adventure stories, there's a lot of adventure in this book. So here's an example. One of my favorite books, Holes, if you haven't read this is super great. I would talk about how this has a really interesting plot. So you're always engaged and you always want to keep reading because he keeps on adding all these surprises that you weren't expecting. So there's always new things happening in the book, and all those different ideas come together in the end in a way that's really exciting. So that's why I love this book. The point is, whether we're talking about why you should read our favorite book or why our parents should take us to this restaurant that we like versus this other restaurant that's maybe not our favorite, we're all trying to convince each other all the time to do things that we want, to believe what we believe. So that's what we do as a social species, is we try and convince other people. So since we're all trying to persuade people all the time, why not be really good at it? And that's why I hope you're interested in debate. So the art of taking your ideas and putting them together to form a cohesive argument, that's called argumentation, right? Making an argument is argumentation. That's what we're going to talk about today. So one of the ways that you can make sure you have a good, strong argument is to follow these steps that I'm about to talk about, right? Assertion, reasoning, evidence, and impact, right? Hope you can see this. I know it's a little small. Okay, so AREI, or I like to remember the question, are I a good debater? Which is not good grammar, but hopefully it helps you to remember this. So, what do these words mean? An assertion is a brief statement that describes your argument, but it's not really asserted yet. Sorry, not really supported yet, okay? So if you're saying we should lower the voting age to 16, right? That's an assertion. It's a claim or opinion that you're making. The next part is your reasoning. You need to explain why you think what you think, right? You can't just say, oh, I believe this, and expect people to agree with you, okay? So you're explaining what you think, and you want to explain your reasoning as thoroughly as possible. So I just said the voting age should be lowered to 16 because there are many teenagers who care about political issues, but they're not able to translate their concerns into actual political change because they can't vote, right? If we lower the voting age, then those younger people who are interested in politics can actually make a bigger difference, okay? The next is evidence, all right? And evidence backs up and verifies what you've already claimed, right? What you've already explained, right? It shows that what you're saying is actually true. It's true in the real world. Now, evidence can be things like, statistics and facts from big important sources, right? But it can also be an example from your own life, right? And both of those things are powerful and can have different kinds of effects on your audience, right? Sometimes a personal story really touches our emotions and that's persuasive. Sometimes a statistic really convinces people with their sense of logic. So it's good to use a variety of different types of evidence. I might say, in the voting example, I'd say, for example, Greta Thunberg and many other leaders in the climate change movement are teenagers. They're not old enough to vote in the United States, but they obviously care a lot and are very involved in an important political issue, and yet they can't vote. Now we get to our final step, the I. This stands for impact, okay? And impact is where you explain why your idea is important. Okay? So, yeah, we have given a lot of stuff that explains why we think what we think, but impact is where you really convince your audience that they should believe you and be on your side. This is where you explain what would happen if that thing were enacted or not enacted. You explain how this affects society, why you, judge or audience, should care about what I'm saying, right? Why should they care? Why does this matter? So, in my voting example, I might say, if those passionate teenage activists could vote, then we would have politicians who cared more about climate change. We would have laws being changed that impact climate change. And this could save the planet for the future of those people, because those teenagers are going to grow up and be the future, right? And then you tie it back to your original assertion. That's why the voting age should be lowered to 16. Okay? It's just review. So, assertion, we say what we think. We explain why we believe it with our reasoning. We give some evidence to back it up, an example for our own lives or some research that we've done, and impact, where we explain why this argument and our point of view really matters. Okay? We should get a dog because then I would get more exercise. I would be walking at least twice a day to take the dog out, and you know how exercise is important, and you're always telling me to get more. For example, just the other day, you were telling me, hey, maybe you should stop playing on your phone and let's go outside for a walk, and I didn't want to. If I had a dog, I'd have to go out for a walk twice a day. So you wouldn't have to nag me, which would be so much better. I'd be getting more exercise, and plus we'd have a dog. That's why we should get a dog, right? So you can see this has good applications in your own life if you want to convince your parents, right? So let's try it. TV is a bad influence. That's my assertion, right? Sorry if these are a little small, but let's say we're claiming that TV is a bad influence. Well, why? Why do we think that? Because TV shows too much violence, right? So now what are our next steps? We show evidence of that and impact. Can you think of some evidence that TV shows too much violence and is therefore a bad influence? Take a moment to think about it. You could give an example of that. You could say, last night I watched TV for about an hour and a half, and in that time I saw 2 murders and a fight on TV. So I'm going to give a personal example of something I've seen, right? What's the impact of that? So a lot of times we stop without doing impact, right? But why does this matter? Think about it. What's the impact of that? And give me an answer. Okay, when we're thinking about impact, it's important to remember our original assertion. Remember, we're trying to claim that TV is a bad influence. So what's the effect it has on other people? What's the influence? And I would say this could lead to kids mimicking the violence because they're seeing it on TV. So if they're seeing murders and fights, maybe they think it's okay to fight or that murders are normal, right? This could lead to them trying to imitate violent behavior because they're copying what they see, which is very natural for people to do, okay? So this goes back to my original assertion that TV's a bad influence versus TV is bad for your brain, right? I'm talking about the effect it has on other people. All right, let's try a new one. Look at the magic Post-its going down. All right, so now I'm going to skip the assertion. Let's say I'm arguing that my reasoning is eating junk food is bad for your health, right? An example of that is that junk foods are high in fat and sugar. So if this is the way I'm arguing, what do you think my assertion is? Take a moment to think about it. So if this is my reasoning, right, that eating junk food is bad for your health, maybe I'm trying to argue something like people should limit how much junk food they eat, right? Because I'm explaining why the junk food is a problem, right? So yeah, people should limit how much junk food they eat because eating junk food is bad for your health. For example, it's high in fat and sugar, right? What's the impact of all this, right? If people eat a lot of junk food and it's high in fat and sugar, they could get diseases that are caused by having too much fat or too much sugar. So lots of people can get diseases and then they're unhealthy, and we don't want that, all right? So again, my impact links back to my original argument that I'm making. It all flows together. We should limit it because it's bad for your health. Here's an example of that. And this is the impact of people eating this food that's bad for their health. All right, so now it's time for you to try it with your assertion, reasoning, evidence, and impact. Tell me, or tell your parents maybe, I can't clean my room today. That's your assertion. Come up with an argument as to why you can't clean your room today. I'll give you a few moments. Include an example or some evidence. Okay, that sounds very convincing, right? Maybe you said something like, you can't clean your room because you have too much homework, right? And you explained exactly how much homework you have, right? And then the impact of that is, well, what's more important, homework or good grades, right? I can always, clean my room tomorrow, right? But I can't do my homework tomorrow because it's due tomorrow. I have to do it today, right? So you can show that there's harm caused if you don't do your homework today, but there's no harm caused. There's no problem if you don't get to cleaning your room today. By the way, right, you should clean your room, right? You should clean your room because that way you know where everything is, right? For example, when I was younger, I was really messy. My room was always a mess. And now I've gotten a lot more organized. And now I don't waste time finding anything, right? And wasting time finding stuff is such a waste of your time. There's so many better things you could be doing, right? And life is so much better and happier when you know when your stuff is. So keep your room clean. That's my argument to try and persuade you, right? Make sure you always talk about that impact, all right? A lot of times we think our evidence or our reasoning is sufficient, right? But if you've got a really skeptical person there, that impact is what gets them on board with your argument. You say, the world will be so much better, right, if we have this thing, if I don't clean my room today, if we get a dog, whatever, right? And then they're like, I really agree, right? When you show the benefits of it or the harm that something causes, that's when you make your argument. All right, last one. Here we go. All right, New York City is a great place to live. That's your assertion. Come up with an argument. Why is New York City a great place to live? Really explain your reasoning. Okay, so New York City is a great place to live. Maybe you talked about all the wonderful food that we have here and how delicious and healthy it is, and it's everywhere, which is really great to hear, right? You gave an example of a place where your family likes to pick up food and the prices are reasonable and it's so delicious and they always have new things on the menu, and that's so interesting. What's the impact of that? It means that there's always variety. It means that you're always happy because you have something tasty to eat for dinner, right? And that's what makes it a great place to live. Tying our impact back to our assertion. So we make a claim, we explain it as thoroughly as possible with our reasoning, We show that this is actually true in the real world with our examples, with our statistics, with our evidence, and then we talk about why all this matters. So remember, are I a good debater, right? That's the format that we use, but I think it's pretty intuitive. This is what you believe, why you think it. Look, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's some evidence, and this is why we should care, right? Those are the steps to making a good argument. Happy debating. Bye.